Hello and welcome to Dugout Debrief. I'm your host, Chris DeLuca. This is Boom Broadcasting's one first and only baseball-centric podcast, and I'm really happy to be able to say that every single week. I'm really happy to be able to bring you the light of summer in this wonderful holiday season as the hot stove continues to stay scorching hot here. And we're seeing more and more transactions, more and more trades, more and more free agency signings. We're seeing more and more of that happen before it usually heats up. I mean, previously we were seeing these crazy deals, these crazy trades and free agency signings late into the winter, even into the spring. I mean, we talked about this on the last episode, how some of Scott Boras's guys, especially guys like Bryce Harper and Manny Machado, were waiting until almost spring training to make signings. But we are seeing enormous deals here. So we're going to go break some of them down. But this is our AL West breakdown as well. The first part of that, we'll be breaking down 3 AL West teams as well. As next week, ladies and gentlemen, the day after Christmas will actually be our last American League breakdown episode. And we'll be moving into the National League, and time is flying. I think I might go throw in a couple random theme episodes when I have time to sit down and really think about that. But yeah, if you have any suggestions for episodes, drop them in the comments, because I am definitely down to go and break this up a little bit, because I'm going to have a couple gap weeks anyway. We're going to be talking about college baseball here in the future, especially as it gets closer and closer. A lot of schedules are coming out. West Virginia's schedule just came out. And maybe I'll actually discuss that this episode. I might actually cue that up. That's on the fly kind of thing right here. Honestly, I might actually go ahead and just review that later on in the show. So with that being said, we're going to go start with the news of the week, which is the way that we always start this week, or any week. Cody Bellinger was traded to the New York Yankees, and I think it is a perfect fit. He was traded for Cody Petite. And the Yankees are eating most of his contract. The Cubs are only having to pay $5 million out of that $52.5 million contract. There are 2 years left, and there are 2 opt-outs left. But going back to my opinion on it, I think it's perfect. I mean, if you look at the Yankees, he's filling in 2 position losses. He's filling in potentially at first base with Rizzo being on the way out. I kind of personally think first base is a waste of Cody Bellinger's athleticism, but he can also fill in the outfield. I mean, he does outfield, he does first base. I mean, obviously they lost Juan Soto, so they have a decision to make, and that's a good decision. That's a good bridge that Aaron Boone has to come to when he crosses that. That's not a bad thing. But yeah, I think it fits in. I was kind of hypothesizing on this the past few days, ever since we've seen and then the other signing we're about to talk to that happened right after last week's Dugout Debrief dropped, actually. I mean, are the Yankees better? And this is a question that Chris Rose attacked too, and Trevor Plouffe on that great podcast too, Baseball Today. But I got to say that they are making up for it. I mean, they might still need to grab another few pieces off the board. They might still need to get a couple bullpen arms, but they might be better than last year. I mean, obviously losing Juan Soto is a huge blow, even if besides the WAR, besides all that, besides the B WAR and the D WAR, or sorry, the O WAR and the D WAR, you're losing that spunk. You're losing that clubhouse guy. You're losing that power, just that name recognition. So speaking of the Yankees throwing their pockets, throwing their deals, throwing everything at the wall right now because of losing Juan Soto, Cashman is mad, and he also brought in Max Fried. I mean, out of the big major 2-3 pitchers here on free agency, he was a big one to go off the board. 8 years, $218 million, or 8 years, $218 million, 8 years, $218 million. And that is just insane. Like I said, Cashman will be throwing money to the moon, to Saturn, to Venus and Neptune right now. It makes the Yankees continue with their elite rotation. Looking at guys like Garrett Cole, Max Fried will be that number 2 more than likely. Carlos Rodon, Luis Heel, Clark Schmidt, Marcus Stroman potentially too. There are so many pieces there. And even with the departure of Nestor Cortez, which we're going to talk about here in a minute too. Look, New York pitching has always been their Achilles heel. I mean, Jason from Sideline Savants and Three from Deep can definitely agree with that. Him and I are texting pretty much every day about baseball when we can on our lunch breaks. So, it's like you can tell that baseball's always on our minds too. And sports is on our minds here on Boom Broadcasting, by the way. So make sure to check out his stuff. But we talk about this every day, especially when these deals are breaking around lunchtime here. And, I've actually not floated this question to him. So, Jason, if you're watching, I'm going to float this question. Are the Yankees better or are they not better? We're just going to go backtrack there. But even with losing Cortez, pitching has always been their weakness. But now that they went ahead and got Fried, hey, I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. And I think that they're filling team needs. Overall, they're filling team needs. Maybe another bullpen arm. It wouldn't surprise me if they go for Tanner Scott. I think that would be ideal too, just to back up that bullpen. But I don't think Cashman's done spending. With that being said, Nestor Cortez was traded to the Milwaukee Brewers for Devin Williams. So they got that bullpen arm. They got that closer arm, which the closer position was weird for New York this year. Clay Holmes was demoted, but they managed to kind of do a thing by committee for quite a while. Clay Holmes really struggled. And I think that it was a good idea to go for Devin Williams because now you have that 100% closer. There were a couple guys that did come in that filled in for him. Luke Weaver was one. And so was Scott Efros filled in too. But with Clay Holmes going down, that was rough. Now they have a closer, an actual full-on closer. Devin Williams, ladies and gentlemen, is absolutely electric. So I think they needed that premier closer, and the Brewers got a very, very respectable and good arm. I think Nestor will fit in a lot better than he does in New York, in Milwaukee, under Pat Murphy's squad. So speaking of the NL Central, the Cubs acquired Kyle Tucker from the Houston Astros for Isaac Paredes, Hayden Wazensky, and Cam Smith, who is now the Astros' number one prospect. We're going to talk about them more because the Astros will be covered here in our AL West breakdown. They're trying to compete. The Cubs are trying to compete here. They're trying to build in the short term. I'm only seeing Kyle Tucker stay in the North Side for 1 year. He's a free agent next year. And I think it's a good move for the Cubs because they're about to have a incredibly elite outfield. Fantastic, if not the best outfield. Kyle Tucker, Seiya Suzuki, PCA jumping in there every so often. Ian Happ. Gosh, I'd say it's top 5, not top 3 outfield in the league. So, they're trying to compete. Look at what Craig Counsell said not too long ago here. He said that the Brewers are miles above the Cubs right now when it comes to competing, and they're showing fight. Craig Counsell's former team, the Milwaukee Brewers, who he left for the Cubs, and the mighty Cubs, man. This is kind of like an oxymoron. Nothing against the Cubs personally, but they're underperforming. And they really need to because this generation of guys is not going to be around forever. Ian Happ's out the door soon, So Kyle Tucker, good acquisition, and there's a lot of opportunity there because that is a very, very weak NL Central. On the other former NL Central team, the Houston Astros, before they moved to the American League, they are looking at life past Kyle Tucker, past Alex Bregman. They are starting to change their view. And we're going to be talking about them here later in the episode. So this is kind of the, we're just going to talk about some notable acquisitions here. Danny Jansen to Tampa Bay. The Cubs signed Carson Kelly, a former highly touted prospect with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Jeffrey Springs went to the A's as John Fisher continues to try and legitimize his joke of a team that is playing in a AAA ballpark that should still be in Oakland. Brian De La Cruz, a guy I've kind of been big on from Miami. He went to Atlanta. He went to the NL East division rival Atlanta Braves. The Angels acquired Chucky Robinson from the Chicago White Sox as a solid catcher. Goes to the South Side, and the White Sox also acquired journeyman Bryce Wilson. For all our North Carolina people on here, they might recognize Bryce Wilson. He is from Hillsborough, North Carolina, and he went to Orange High School, by the way. So local for some of our North Carolina viewers on Boom Broadcasting, which is run by Michael Davis, an App State alumni from Wilkes County, so not too far away. Dave Parker was elected to the Hall of Fame. He got in on the Classics Committee. And I'm saying finally, Dave Parker needed to be in the Hall of Fame a long, long time ago, especially when Harold Baines went in. But we know our opinion on Harold Baines here on Dugout Debrief. We don't think that he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and it's nothing against the man personally. But it's not about making comparisons. It is about discussing Dave Parker, who had a fantastic career. 40.1 WAR, 2,712 hits, 1,493 RBIs, 810 OBS career, a MVP, a 7-time All-Star, 3-time Golden Glove and Silver Slugger, and he had 2 batting titles. Dave Parker, man, I think he should have been in. Not necessarily first ballot, but he should have been in by 05 to 2010. The fact that he did not make it in with how he played with those great Pirates teams, those We Are Family Pirates teams with him and Willie Stargell and Kent Colby, it is ridiculous that he was not in. But hey, good things come to those who wait. Congratulations, Dave Parker. You deserve it. So wrapping up our news here, Nolan Arenado exercised his no trade clause and he wants to stay in St. Louis. And I'm a little bit confused about that. It's an interesting move. I don't see St. Louis contending anytime soon. The biggest suitors were Houston and New York, especially Houston. I think it would have made a lot of sense for him to go to Houston. Again, we're going to talk about Houston here in a couple of moments, but his contract his contract, I think he still has like 3 or so years left, 2 or 3 years. And I kind of think St. Louis is overpaying for what they're getting out of him, but that's a Cardinal thing. That's the, Cardinal way. And that's why I don't really see much upside with the Cardinals. And we'll be talking about them here in the future on our NL Central breakdowns in the eventual future as we power through this offseason, ladies and gentlemen, through the cold, hard, as we leave the beautiful Christmas, early winter, late fall, and then we go into the dark, sad seasonal depression time of January, February, March, then March, April. Baseball is back, ladies and gentlemen. So anyway, Nolan Arenado's contact and his on base was declining pretty concerning rate. 25 on base percentage this past year, 325 on base percentage this year, and then a 315 the year before, going down from the higher 300s that he was used to on the on base percentage. He was hitting almost 4s and that great glove, and he still has that great glove, but I just don't think that he's having it anymore. But he's exercised that no trade clause. I think he's doing that because he wants to stay in St. Louis, because he knows that he's going to stay there because they're not going to let go of him as long as he has that contract. But anyway, we're going to go to the number 1 former Nolan Arenado suitor, and we're going to go to the Houston Astros. And as we talked about just a few moments ago, with them trading Kyle Tucker, with Alex Bregman getting that ovation at the end of the year, I think they're moving on. I think that they're moving into a world of not being that yearly juggernaut. And the lineup really isn't impressive, especially that bottom half. I mean, it's like Chas McCormick, Joe Singleton. It's nothing against them personally. They're just not really there to the Astros caliber that we're used to. Altuve is aging. Yordan Alvarez is getting hurt every other minute, I feel like. Paredes has a lot to prove. He has a lot of upside, but he's, I think, he's in their 3rd or 4th spot right now projected. Yainer Diaz, too, there's a lot to prove. And the issue is while there's a lot to prove, that farm system is atrocious. They have 2 people in the top 100. One of them is Cam Smith, the man that they just acquired from the Chicago Cubs. So, I mean, what do they need? They know Nolan Arenado. They're not getting him. I would say a Teoscar Hernandez return would be fantastic. Teoscar Hernandez had a great year with the world champion Los Angeles Dodgers. I'll never let anyone forget that. Maybe an Anthony Rizzo, too, at corner infield. Some more power, some more prominence. But overall, you got to start building that farm system, because while that AL West might be weak here, we might be talking about a weak-ish division. Teams are going to be on the up and up. And, what is their future? I still see them getting second place. You'll use process of elimination by the end of this episode to see who I have coming in first anyway. So it's not really much of a matter. Doesn't really matter keeping it secret. I think Michael Davis might understand that if he's watching here. They always overperform. They will. They always find a way. They're a very well-run organization, but this is a weird period for them. I think it's kind of the beginning of not necessarily the end, but it's a different era, at least, of Astros baseball. Plus, Seattle's always stagnant. And speaking of Seattle, so much yet so little. They had such a huge step back this year from breaking that playoff drought to going 85 and 77. It was not what we expected this year. I had them being a 95 to 100 win team. And it's their time. It's their time, because Texas is the only strong man in that division right now. The A's are the A's. They're doing what they're doing right now. The Angels are comically bad, and we're going to talk about them here in a few moments. Houston's, we just talked about them. They're on the down right now, not necessarily to the basement, but they're on the down right now. Your only strong man's Texas, man. I mean, come on, Seattle. I've wished so much for them. I mean, that pitching rotation, they have a top 5 rotation in baseball, if not top 3. And it includes guys like Logan Gilbert. It includes a guy like Luis Castillo. It includes a guy like George Kirby, Brian Wu. I mean, there's a lot there, but the issue is they're just not willing to really give anything up. By the way, the Mariners lost Dave Sims as their announcer, which made me very sad, as Dave Sims was one of my favorite announcers. But he's gone to go be the Yankees' new radio announcer with Sterling retiring. So, hats off to Sterling on his retirement. Hats off to Dave Smith on getting the new job back in his hometown. Dave Sims getting the job back in his hometown. But, going back to his former team that he announced, the Mariners, I mean, the offense is stagnant, and there's names there, but it's stagnant. I mean, they have J-Rod, who's one of the most electric players in baseball. They have Randy Arozarena, who's had a down year, has had a down past 2 years after his great 2020, the Rays World Series run. But Victor Robles, J.P. Crawford has not been what they expected. He has not been what the doctor ordered. Cal Raleigh has kind of been all or nothing. A lot of people are just having down years, and I just have a couple stats to pull. They were second to last in hits and batting average. They were 25th in slugging, and they were number 1 in the most strikeouts. They struck out the most. And these are guys who are you have average hitters here. You have guys who have average and power, who have all these tools and aspects of the game, like Victor Robles, like J-Rod. And there's Randy Arozarena, 2 guys who are not supposed to strike out a lot, guys who are supposed to get hits, have that power, but also draw those walks, and they are not doing that. They're striking out at an alarming rate. These metrics that I just read off to you guys, ladies and gentlemen, is comparable to teams like Tampa Bay, Randy Arozarena's former team, who the Rays are in a weird state, as we've talked about. They're a boom or bust. They always have been, but they're on the down low right now. Comparable to teams like the Pittsburgh Pirates, who also really struggled this year, who we're going to be talking about here pretty soon as well. And what do they need? I mean, they need to spend. They need to stop being stingy. They need to go out for someone, because it is now or never, Seattle. With that very, very young roster, you're going to have to pay these guys pretty soon. I say you go for Alex Bregman. I think going for Alex Bregman, that would show the standard. That would show that fan base that, hey, we're willing to spend. We want to do something. And it's a weird time in Seattle right now for sports-wise. I mean, the Seahawks are very up and down, led by West Virginia University grad Geno Smith. The Kraken are the newest team in all of sports. And Mariners, you're the big hope right now. You're the big, huge hope right now. And I never, they're probably Seattle natives are not used to hearing that, but I want him to spend something. Maybe go for Alec Boehm. I mean, maybe trade something. Just do something, Seattle. Please stop being so stingy. Give up one of those pitching prospects. Give up a Luis Castillo maybe for an Alec Boehm. I would not be opposed to that. You have to sacrifice sometimes. You have to sacrifice a pitcher. It's a great rotation. You got guys who can step up. You got a respectable farm system. You got a good future. I see them going second or third place, depending on how Houston performs. I think it's a huge step back, and it's a hard division, and it's a hard it's a hard league. I'm going to give them second place, tentatively second or third, and since I gave Houston 79 wins, I'm going to give the Mariners 78 to 85. I think they repeat what they're doing because they're not going to spend money. They've been totally silent unless something changes. And if it does, we will talk about it here on Dugout Debrief. But speaking of teams that are trying to make changes, and this team is not making very many changes in their future, but are making changes roster-wise. So we admire the effort. And I always admire that. It's a weird time for the Angels, a weird time for Los Angeles, Anaheim, the Los Angeles, California Angels of Anaheim. A good friend of mine is a big Angels fan, and I love talking about it, except the Dodgers won the World Series. It's like, don't talk to me about baseball. Don't talk about baseball, man, just for a minute. But look, I admire, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, Kikuchi, Kyle Hendricks, Travis d'Arnaud, all good signings, but it doesn't improve their future much. And that farm system, they need to be developing. And I think that that's kind of the issue with Artie Moreno still owning that team. Is it's a similar situation to the White Sox with Jerry Reinsdorf. Is he has a very, very old-fashioned way of looking at the game. And while that does have its benefits, it also has its failures in the sense that you have the 29th, I think the 29th ranked farm system right now. Caden Dana, Christian Moore, and George Clausen are the top. What's like top guys I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, you had your worst season ever with 99. I think they had 98 losses, 99 losses. That was the worst season ever. Which the Angels have never been historically terrible, even when they're young. Even they're a young expansion team back in the 70s. They're still owned by Disney. They're still never terrible. They never have been. And even this year, I wouldn't say that they were the worst team in baseball. There are teams that are significantly worse than them. I would say at least 3 or 4. I'd say at least the Rockies, Marlins, and obviously the worst team in baseball history, the White Sox, were worse than them. But you can't be performing that low and having these higher draft picks and still just being atrocious. So Artie Moreno needs to sell the team. I've been a fan. I think that if you're a stagnant of an owner like Artie Moreno or Reinsdorf or Fisher, you need to sell the team. But that's a show for another time. Where do I see the Angels next year? It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. I'm going to give them 70 wins. I'm going to have them have a slight improvement from last year, but not too much better. They went 63 and 99. I just saw that here in my notes. I give them 70. I give them maybe about 7 more wins than they did last year at most. I'd say maybe that, or they even disprove. I think they'll be in last place. I think the A's are objectively a better team despite all the adversity that they've gone through. And we'll be talking about those A's on the next episode of Dugout Debrief next week. And we'll be talking about Michael Davis's Texas Rangers as well. So tune in for that to continue our AL West breakdown. That being said, I've covered the teams I want to cover here in the AL West breakdown. I just kind of want to go ahead and take a look here. I mean, college baseball, ladies and gentlemen, is sneaking up. WVU's first game will be against the University of Jacksonville, Florida. And let's just say that I've been to a couple WVU games in February, and it's not very fun in Morgantown in February. So I'm happy that the boys are starting out down in Jacksonville. We got a 5-game series down there with them in February. We got Lipscomb. We're going to Nashville for that. And our first home game will be against University of Ohio on February 25th. And that's a Tuesday. So I'm debating if I'm going to want to go that. So University of Ohio, we got some good games this year. Obviously, we're going to Queens in New York, or sorry, Queens, New York. Geez, we're going to Queens University in Charlotte, and one of those games being Kannapolis. And we also got the CFP 25 game, the video game legend Kennesaw State coming into Morgantown too, just to begin off our season. And look, we had a tragic end to our season in Chapel Hill at the Chapel Hill Regional. I was present for both those games. I was present for that Vance Honeycutt walk-off home run in game one when I really thought we were going to win. And I wanted to send JJ Weatherholt to a super regional, but we did not. So, like I said, I'm doing a quick little discussion that I just went over the first few games because we're starting to test the waters here. Because again, we're going to have seasonal depression in February. We got to be talking about baseball at least a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. We got to have something to brighten us up outside of college basketball because the Super Bowl will be over. There'll be nothing else to talk about. So, like I said, we're going to be talking more college baseball on this show as we get closer and closer to the college baseball season. And if you have any college baseball teams you want me to break down, drop them in the comments. So with that being said, we're going to go move on to our trivia question, and we are going to be getting out of here. So last week's trivia question, we were talking about the legend, the myth, the legend, Deion Sanders, the two-sport athlete, college football coach and famous two-sport athlete. Deion Sanders famously played in the MLB and NFL, technically on the same day, sort of, depending on how you want to consider that. He was known as a cornerback in football, but what position did he play in baseball? And I'm giving you bonus points if you named the teams too. So he was an outfielder. He predominantly played left field. He played a little bit of the outfield for the Reds, for the Braves, for the Yankees, and for the Giants over his respectable MLB career. And he had a pretty respectable NFL career. Obviously, we remember him more for the NFL, but don't forget, Deion was a baseball player too, and he was pretty darn good at baseball. That's just a crazy feat too, to be able to play both of them and sort of on the same day. Obviously, that didn't make manager for the Braves, Bobby Cox, very happy that he was playing I think he was on the can't remember who he was on when he played two sport. I know it was Braves baseball. I think he was on the Falcons too. I think he was on both Atlanta teams same time. But if I got it wrong, quote me in the comments. But hey, Colorado football almost got that Big 12 title, but Kansas decided to throw a monkey wrench and everything. But again, it's not a football show. So that being said, this week's trivia question is continuing with our dual sport category or theme, whatever you want. We're just talking about dual sports here the past 2 weeks in Dugout Debrief, ladies and gentlemen. We know who Tom Brady is. I think we all do. I hope at least we do. But Tom Brady was also drafted in the MLB. And I'm going to kind of have two parts to this question. So one, what position did Tom Brady play when he was drafted into the MLB? And we'll throw a little bonus in here too. Tom Brady was the last active athlete drafted by this now relocated / defunct team. So we got two questions in one. If you can answer both, go ahead, put it in the comments. No Googling. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Dugout Debrief. I want to wish you a happy holidays. I want to thank you for tuning in every week, for being a part of the best up-and-coming sports YouTube channel on the internet, on social media, on everything. Check out our Instagram. Check out our Twitter. Make sure you're following us on Facebook. Make sure you're watching everything. We got a lot going on. Ladies and gentlemen, we got out of pocket 3 to 4 times a week with Michael Davis. Sometimes you see me. Sometimes you see Shannon from Quick Hits. Sometimes you see Jason from Sideline Savants and 3 from Deep. Sometimes you will see Wayne from Sideline Savants as well. We got a lot of great stuff here. Overall, guys, I'm very happy that we're able to do this project. And finally, make sure to tune into Gridiron Address. I'm basically there all the freaking time. I was there this past week talking about the Steelers and the Eagles, which was not very fun for me, unfortunately. But, I guess I got to have my come down to earth moment as a Steelers fan. And we got Baltimore. We got a big game on Saturday. And I have a hunch I might be talking about that, guys, on the Gridiron Address, but we'll see here. With that being said, I once again want to wish you a happy holidays and thank you for tuning into the Dugout Debrief this week. And have a safe, happy week. Love one another, and see you next week.